If only we know. If only we could see. If only our eyes can be opened to see the great things that God is preparing, is planning, is getting ready for us. On many occasions, we can get discouraged because we don't understand. Our mind is not the same as the mind of God. Our thoughts are lower because He's a God. The Bible recorded that His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And so this evening, I want to welcome you to this teaching. And I want to title it Growing in the Dark. Growing in the Dark. Growing in the Dark. Because sometimes we seem to forget. Scientists made us to believe, psychologists made us to believe, neuroscientists always propose or teach that the brain was designed or wired for comfort. And so anytime we encounter difficult situations, we get upset because it is abnormal for our brain. But unknown to us, it is in the moments, in those difficult moments, that God brings out the best from us. God uses difficult moments to bring out the best in us. And so, every time you get into that point in your life where things doesn't make sense, difficult situations, that is your dark moments. And that is when growth is happening. We may not understand because sometimes it makes no sense. How can someone who had been so faithful to his God, you have been a church person, a church guy, a church lady, you have been keeping faith, you have maintained your piety, you have kept your virginity, you have grown, you have avoided temptations that goes with adolescents, with young adulthood, with everything that you have lived with, and yet it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you don't know that the discipline that God is taking you through is a preparation for the leadership that He will take you to. And so I'm going to share a few biblical examples of people who did not understand the dark moments and what it really means for them. And so they were struggling without even understanding why they were struggling. That God was trying to glorify Himself, that God was trying to raise a stone of help for them. The story of Joseph comes handy. Joseph was a star boy in his household, the household of Jacob. He was young, he was loved by his father, being the first son from Rachel the beloved. But time came after the death of Rachel, hatred started developing in the family. We all know the story, and so things start getting tough for this young boy. Domestic hatred. Domestic hatred is one of the greatest evil that could happen in a family. When there is hatred, there is distrust, there is conspiracy. But that is not the story. That's not the focus of the story. The focus I want to raise is that while Joseph was going through those difficult moments in his life, from being thrown into the pit, to being sold out to strangers, to being taken to Potiphar's wife, to being sent to prison, for being dumped in prison for many years, for being forgotten by even the ones he helped to come out of prison. They were all the resilience, they were all the preparations that were needed for the eventual prime ministership that he would become. How will you understand this? How will you explain this? That David was rejected in his own household. Many theologians have tried to explain why David, as a young boy, was always left in the forest, in the wild, to tend for sheep. No one will understand that God was using the moments of the shepherd to teach David what it means to take care of things. no one will understand that God was using the lions, the bears, to teach David how to fight a Goliath. And so we keep talking about David and his humble beginning and how he was rejected by his family, to the point that when Samuel was sent to anoint him as king, his father couldn't even give a proper account of the last son. In fact, he was literally excluded from the sonship of his household of Jesse. But then when he comes to deal with Goliath, he started giving testimonies of how he had killed the lion that came to attack. He had killed the bear that came to attack. He was able to kill them and take back the lamb, the sheep that were stolen. And so we see David develop the kindness, the tender heart, the humility that it takes, and also the strength, the courage that it takes to fight like a lion, to fight like a soldier. And so when it was time to demonstrate this strength, the first test was the test of humility. We can see that when David was about to confront Goliath, he didn't do it on his strength. He did not rely on his strength. He only used those CVs. I call them his CVs. Experience is your CV. The experience you're going through today, I don't know the kind of experience, the kind of difficult moments you are experiencing today, they are what will make up your CVs for tomorrow. And so David submitted his CV of how he had killed bears, lions that came to attack his sheep in the wild, and compared Goliath as one of them. But one thing we need to notice clearly is that he was humble enough to admit that these things were not done by his own strength, by his own power, because he lacked the power, and he knows that he lacks the power. And so where arrogance plays is when we lack the power, but we pretend that we do have the power. We do have the power. When we know that we do not have the knowledge, but we pretend that we do have the knowledge. That is ego. And so David had to confront Goliath, relying on the strength of God. But the entire courage was developed in the wild, in the experiences that defined his growing up. Those moments would not have made sense. Did you know that David also developed how to sing in the wild? When he would watch and see how God would guide his sheep and keep them in the wild and bring them back when it was season. No wonder when he writes, "The Lord is my shepherd," he had looked at the sheep and how they were taken care of and understood that it was not by his making, but these were the experiences that shaped who he became in life. Is God taking you to experiences that you do not understand? Are you going through moments, difficult moments in your family, in your marriage, in your workplace, in your career, in your studies that doesn't make sense? I want you to understand that God allows you to grow in the dark. Before a baby is born, no one has ever comfortably, in detail, explained the mystery behind the development of fetus to the level of a baby. We will understand that this happens in the dark, in the darkness of the womb, where a lot of things, a lot of mysteries unfold. So that is how God forms something in the dark, allows it to grow in the dark. Biologists also agree that the trees that we see develop or experience growth in the dark. While they need sun, they also need the dark to be able to utilize whatever energy they have gotten from the sun that will cause them to grow. And so I want to encourage you, listeners, that no matter the situation you're going through, it could be a situation that is so difficult for you to understand, a difficult situation that you are unable to explain. You don't even know why this is happening. God say that He is causing you to grow. God say that He's causing you to develop, that He's preparing you for something greater, for something better. I pray that you continue to endure the growth